literally terrifies me because man and women have explored 5 to 10% of the ocean, meaning that 90% of it is a question mark. It's unknown. We think that the Marianas Trench is the deepest point in the ocean, but we don't know because we've only explored that 5 to 10%. So what else is in there? And I can't think of anything more terrifying than to be shipwrecked in the middle of the ocean, thousands of miles away from land at nighttime in the dark. Like, to me, that is the ultimate form of terror.
The sea's pretty at night.
Oh no!
It should settle in. It should settle your nerves.
Silver lining right there.
You want to go on our cruise with us,
canopy
Kyle?
of stars.
I could do a cruise because I don't know if I could. Like, I won't even go into sensory deprivation chambers for this reason. I got offered to go into one, but there's something about, like, you have this giant vast void underneath you and you cannot see anything that's coming at you. Like, you don't know what's going to be up under you. Not in this, obviously, guys, not in the sensory deprivation chamber. I know that's only 10 inches of water, but your mind plays tricks on you. And so the way that my mind would work is I would be in that chamber floating. And so my mind's going to start racing and working, and I'm going to start thinking of KC going to see the Meg. And then all of a sudden there's going to be a school bus sized shark underneath my ass in a metal tank. And I'm going to panic and freak out and probably get injured. So I can't do that.
Just punch it right in the face.
Bigger than
that. Okay,
I have a pirate-related question from the chat. Andrew Kroll, what is Davy Jones' locker?
It was kind of like
a Beatles song.
I think there. I think that there was, actually a pirate named like David Jones. I don't know much about that one, about the pirate, but it was kind of like it's kind of like pirate hell, I guess. It was kind of like kind of like a myth. I don't know why it was started, but it was it's just like this cultural thing, and I think it only existed in any references to this only existed like I think it was just after the Golden Age. Actually, it might have been during the Golden Age.
Yeah, I think I've seen some 17th century references. Basically, if you're a bad sailor and you die at sea, you're hell's at sea.
Gotcha.
It's a step up if you're going to go to hell. Yeah, at nighttime. I'm serious. You need to check the sea out at night.
I will from a land mass. I will be with my feet on the ground. I will gladly look at the sea at nighttime. Absolutely, no trouble. On a pier. On a pier. Just as a side note, and then Casey, if there's any questions that you see, you can ask them, and then we'll go to Dave for super chats. I'm on my iPad right now, so I can't actually see your questions, guys. Hey, Kitty.
Anybody,
let me guess.
Before you start, anybody who has questions, tag me.
Can we get out of here?
I'm trying to think of a really creative cat pirate name, but I'm coming up.
Speaking of cats,
Admiral Meow.
Here, come on, buddy. He's a 16-pound stray we picked up a few years, and
Commodore
he'd
Kitty.
actually been in a fight and had an abscess in his head and the fuzziest balls he's ever seen.
And then Lawrence has a black beard, black fur.
No, my cat's actually part bobcat, like a quarter bobcat. So he's a vicious little fucker. I love him.
That's not terrifying.
Kyle, he says S.O. Lycan in the chat says Captain Kibble.
Oh, that's
for
good.
The cat name, Captain Kibble. Yeah.
You win. You win.
All right.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Casey.
you do your thing, and then I have a question. Well, I mean, there's a question.
I was just going to tell a really quick why I'm scared of the ocean like that. There was a guy in town here when I was in high school. They were actually just fishing, and it was him and a friend of his, and they were I forget if it was a couple 100 feet away from the pier, but they had tied off to the pier, and the rope broke, and so they started drifting, and they were like, well, we'll be okay because the current's not too bad. But before they knew it, they had been swept out, and they weren't found for 28 days. 28 days. And he said that it was not only the creepiest, I forget how he worded it, but he said it was terrifying to be in the middle of the night, especially when the clouds were over the moon, so there wasn't any of that light reflecting off the water, to be out into a just black void of nothingness. It's just you and the rocking boat with no moonlight, no nothing. And that just, I guess when I was in high school, it just stuck with me. And so ever since then, you will not find me in any water at nighttime. No way. Unless it's a hot tub. I'll do a hot tub.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. Dan the Machine asked, were captains elected?
At least during some part of the Golden Age, yes. I'm not sure how it worked in antiquity, but when it comes to the Golden Age, yeah, they were generally elected.
Yeah, there may be some exception. There's one difference between the late 17th, early 18th century, where it could be the same, but I haven't found any early 18th century documentation of this. But late 17th century, the general tradition was if buccaneers went to sea, they captured a better ship. That ship was actually given to the captain, and then he got a certain number of shares for it. Okay, so this is how captains late 17th century could actually get really rich. If you had 12 shares for the vessel and you had a very profitable cruise, you probably only needed a couple of those shares to do maintenance on the vessel and take care of it, and the rest of it went into his pocket. In a moment, I'll remember why I had the point I'm trying to come to is that often the captains with reputations and already had their ships. It might be a condition of signing on with them is that they were the captain. That does not mean that they couldn't be removed from command, however. So, and like Lorence says, though, basically, yeah, you were elected in the Golden Age and served at the pleasure of the crew. And they could depose you. That also caused problems at times. There's some notoriously screwed up cruises because of political factions,
Mutiny.
A lot of it depended on...
Mutiny.
They called it mutiny. Technically, it was democracy, but...
Okay,
well said.
So Fostering Atheism asked, who do you consider the most infamous pirate and why? And if you each just pick one, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, it kind of depends on how you're using infamous, because I know when it comes to the biggest fleet, like the most successful and in a sense of sheer power, the most terrifying, I think it would be Cheng Yisao. But when it comes to how fucked up someone is, I would say it was probably Francois Lolonais. That guy was seriously messed up.
All right.
Francois, a badass pirate named Francois? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I'm a French pirate.
His real name was Jean David now, but most of these buccaneers late 17th century had nom de guerre. They had, they took different names for a lot of reasons. I don't know why he would take Francois, but French, I don't know.
What would be yours, Mr. Little?
And again, it depends on what you're defining here. If you're meaning, are we looking at notorious,
scary,
infamous,
badass?
Scary badass.
Oddly enough, I would probably not Blackbeard because we really don't have as much information as we'd like to think we were. Plus, he got in actual hand-to-hand combat, he and about 11 of his guys got their asses totally kicked by 13 Royal Navy seamen. I mean, it was literally...
But he hung candles from his beard.
And probably burned his beard off doing that too, for all we know. I mean, it's not something I'd try. I mean, you ever watch a kid get their hair in a birthday candle? But
like Michael Jackson in a Pepsi commercial.
Yeah, like that.
Really, I mean, yeah, if you're looking for really, really, you just mean like stereotypical mean killer type.
Yeah.
You could almost pick anybody out of Alexander X. Melling's book on Buccaneers who were doing it. Like Lorence says, Lolonois might be one of it's probably right up there at the top of just both being very successful, but also just being a very nasty human being. My favorite, though, of famous pirates would probably be Lawrence de Graaf, a Dutchman who had served the Spanish as a gunner. Got captured, went over to the French, became one of the most famous late 17th century filibusters of all time. Very, very successful, very swashbuckling, dashing, big Spanish, handlebar mustache. Reputedly had, when he was in town and Saint-Domingue, in one of the ports there, he'd have violins and, a whole posse following him around. Very, very successful guy. He actually defeated a member of the Spanish ship of the Spanish Armada de Barlovento with a very rich cargo. He fought two ships of the Spanish. This armada was a pirate hunting armada, basically. He fought two ships, each of which was about twice his size, to a standstill and escaped from them. He's a true swashbuckling kind of guy. Probably a cad, to use an old word term too. He was married to a woman in the Canary Islands. He'd met a rich widow on Saint-Domingue, married her instead, became a legitimate French officer, and actually got a divorce from that poor woman in the Canary Islands. And there were rumors that he was also married, probably illegally, because he never divorced his first wife in Veracruz prior to that, another child by it. But anyway, if you're looking for just a great swashbuckling character, it would probably be Lawrence de Graaf. You don't hear as much about him because he was with the French, and most of the accounts of him are in French. You can look him up on the internet. There's some pretty good stuff on him out there, and some incorrect things as well. But
hopping Jack Sparrow about it being in French. Before we talk about Jack Sparrow, hopping off the note about it most of the stuff being in French, I find the same problem when I was looking into Chinese pirates, because most of it has not been translated, and I do not understand Chinese, so there's not really much for me to go off of. And
you have chopsticks instead of a hook.
Okay, next question. Did pirates ever resort to cannibalism, and if so, what was the punishment?
I mean, I can think sometimes they would, but not like with each other, I don't think.
Well, that's seaman anywhere. Yeah, if you're lost at sea, you might resort to it, but it's not a pirate thing specifically. There were not pirates. Offhand, I can really think of only one account, and that's they weren't technically pirates. That was Juan Corso, who was probably Juan Miguel, actually, a Cuban privateer in the late 17th century. The English considered him a pirate because a lot of things he did, he probably were outside the bounds of his commission, but he and a guy named Pedro de Castro were sent to hunt for La Salle's, the famous La Salle who explored the Mississippi and all that. He built a small colony. It was in Texas, but they were looking along the Gulf Coast for it, and they got shipwrecked. And the survivor account said that between Native American attacks and their general starvation, that they ate their dead. I don't know if they killed people to eat them, but they basically ate them down to their heads, I believe was the quote. But it's not a pirate thing. It's like Lawrence was saying, it's just,
survival,
extreme circumstances and survival of,
Okay.
I know there's a fascination with cannibalism, but
I don't know. What were pieces of eight?
Cat. You can take that, Lawrence, or I can.
To my understanding, they were just relatively the same size pieces of. I think they were either gold or silver, and I know that two. I know that 2 pieces of 8 was 1 doubloon. That's what I remember.
Yeah, 2 gold coins would be a doubloon. The piece, it's basically in